Hey there, guys. Welcome to the MH Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Miles Harrison. In today's episode, I want to talk to you through how I think when I write a training program for someone. Not just what ends up written on the page, but the thinking behind it, the conversations that shape it, and the decision that happens before exercise, sets, and reps even comes into the picture. Programming for me isn't just a technical task, it's a thinking process. And when that thinking is clear and grounded, the program tends to make a lot more sense and works a lot better over time. So I'm going to walk you through the process from the very start as you were here sat right next to me. When someone comes to me for coaching, the program itself is never the first thing I think about. Before I consider exercise, loading, percentages, or structure, I want to understand the person in front of me. A program only works if it fits the person, not the other way round. That understanding is what everything else is built on. The first stage is always information taking, and this is the part I think is the most important. I want to understand lifestyle first. What their days are actually looking like, how much they work, how much they sleep, what their stress levels are like, all the things outside of a gym that affects how they will train inside of it. Then I want to know their likes, their dislikes, what they enjoy training, what they don't enjoy, what they can cope with consistently, and what they struggle to stick with. I also look at what they're doing right now and what they've done in the past. Their current program, previous program, what works well for them, what hasn't worked well, and where they've made that progress, and where have they felt stuck in the past. Injuries as well are a big part of this. Current injuries, previous injuries, patterns that tend to show up when volume and intensity changes, whether they're feeling pain, whether their pain has been around for a while, all those type of stuff. We talk about goals too, short-term goals, longer-term goals, and sometimes goals that don't directly relate to training but still influences them. If they play sports, I want to know what the sport that they play, where they are in the season, and what demands that put on their body right now. And finally, I want to understand where they are today. Not where they were, but where they are actually right now. This stage can actually feel quite in depth, also quite personal as well. But if you get this right, the rest of the program becomes so much more easier. It gives you context, direction, and clarity from the start. Building flexibility into the program. One thing I'm always thinking about during this stage is how much flexibility the program actually needs. Life is unpredictable. Stress changes, sleep changes, work changes, energy changes. So the program has to allow for adaptation. So the program has to allow for adaptation. Not in a random way. No. Not in a random way, but in a controlled way that still keeps people moving forward. At the same time, too much flexibility can be just as a problem as too little. I often think about it like a game. If someone gives you complete freedom with no structure at all, where they can do whatever they want to do whenever they want, things usually start to drift. Sessions lose intent, progress slows down, and people get bored because there's nothing to build towards. On the other hand, if something is too rigid, real life gets busy, the program starts to feel like pressure rather than support, and that's when consistency tends to drop. So what I'm always aiming for is balance, enough structure to give direction, progression and purpose, but enough flexibility to adjust when life inevitably gets in the way. That balance keeps training engaging and makes progress much easier to sustain long term. Earlier on in my career, I did more formal assessments, movement screens, structured testing systems, things like that. Over time, I've moved away from that approach. Not because assessments isn't important, because I find that some assessments can be misleading, and others don't always reflect how someone actually trains. Certain movements can set people up to struggle unless they've actually had experience in those positions. Now, instead of separating assessment from training, I use training itself as an assessment. I start people in the program and use the sessions to gather real-time feedback. How they move under load, how they respond to fatigue, what positions they struggle to access, and when do they start to break down as intensity increases. For me, training is assessing and assessing is training. We should always be observing, reflecting, and making adjustment based on what we see. If someone lacks mobility and can't access a position, or doesn't yet have the skill required, the program adapts. That's not a problem. That's the process doing what it's supposed to do. Quick reminder while you're here, if you're enjoying the podcast or finding these episodes useful, take a second to like it, share it, and leave a review. It helps more people find the show and keeps the conversation. Right. Find the show and keep the conversation going. Right. Back to the episode. Over the years, I've written very structured programs with specific percentages and progressions. I've also written more flexible programs where the structure is clear, but the learning can be changed based on how someone is feeling. Neither approach is right or wrong. It depends on the person in front of me and the conversations we have. Some people really enjoy structure and numbers, others need flexibility because their structuring or stress levels change week to week. If someone is used to a certain style of program, I'll often start them there. I don't really like making big changes too early in the process because that can make it harder to understand what we're actually working. When it comes to longer term programming, especially with general pop clients, I keep things fairly simple. I don't feel like I need to constantly change numbers for the sake of it. A general linear approach works well for most people. Volume tends to be a little bit higher earlier on and intensity increases over time, and volume gradually comes down as loads get heavier. Periodization for me often comes from the conversation as much as it comes from planning. How someone feels, how they're recovering, how they're performing, and what else is going on in their life. If someone wants a little bit more structured approach, I'll give them that. But I also built in rules to allow flexibility. Life doesn't always run to plan, and programs need to account for that. The goal of a program isn't just about the progress on paper. It's confidence, understanding, and consistency. I want people to feel like their program fits their life. I want them to understand why they are doing what they are doing and to feel confident making small adjustments when needed. There should always be a direction to head in, but the route there needs to allow for change. Right, guys, let's wrap this all up. So that's how I think when I write a training program. It starts with information, it balances with structure and with flexibility, it uses training as assessment, and it evolves over time through feedback and conversation. If you guys found this episode useful, share it with someone who trains or coaches and leave a review. And if you want help with your own training, drop me a message and we can have a proper conversation about it. And as always, guys, keep training and improve your performance. See you in the next episode.